Hi, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. My name is Jennifer Allen. I'm the director of the Border Action Network, a human rights community organization, and we also co-convene the U.S.-Mexico Border and Immigration Task Force that brings together a lot of community interests and community leaders throughout the border region. My question is more of one, I think, maybe around the big picture. And I understand that the GAO report didn't really get into how the checkpoint fits within the larger picture. But I would hope that the Border Patrol or perhaps Congressman Giffords might be able to kind of put this in context for us. What we see is that there's a lot of momentum, both locally and nationally, around building up infrastructure, personnel, technology around ports of entry, mainly because they are the first point of entry of both contraband, of people, of drugs, etc. And in my mind, that makes sense, and that's where resources should be dedicated. And because there is momentum, as evidenced by the expansion of Mariposa, port of entry, and our understanding is that there's a lot of other momentum to expand the other ports of entry, how is the checkpoint not redundant? We want to make sure that border enforcement infrastructure is cost-effective and is hitting to the core of what's needed. So given the buildup that is already in the works in other places, how is this checkpoint necessary? Because there's also other things that are in play. A couple weeks ago, Secretary Napolitano announced at the Border Security Conference in El Paso that SBInet is ready. She's also announced that there was other things in work, and she's reallocating resources to address southbound traffic and to address cross-border criminal activity. So how, again, is the checkpoint not being addressed and looked at in a bubble and in isolation? We want to see that, in fact, it's part of a much larger strategy that is going to truly curb the entry of contraband and drugs and prevent people from having to risk their lives entering the country through places other than ports of entry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. The vast majority of all traffic, whether it be pedestrian, commercial, or local coming through a port of entry, is legitimate legal traffic. Everything coming across the border between the ports of entry is illegal. So the checkpoint is not a redundancy to the port of entry. It works and augments in support of the port of entry.
At the ports of entry, the federal goal is to detect and apprehend 30% of major illegal activity. And this shows the need for a three-tiered strategy.
But what the checkpoint does is the traffic that comes around the ports, between the ports of entry, uses our infrastructure system in this country to get out of the immediate border area into Phoenix and other staging hubs, and then to their ultimate destination throughout the country. That's what the checkpoint serves. It gives us that defense in depth, not redundancy to the POE. However, it does also pick up certain traffic that may make it through the port of entry. If we get a seizure in a vehicle compartment load that came through the port of entry, we check every seizure to see if it did. And we contact the port and we collaborate on this was missed, this is how, this is when. We do that for a lot of reasons, mainly to increase our effectiveness at both the ports and between the ports. And the checkpoint is part of a multi-tiered Border Patrol strategy. It's not just, they're not operated, nor are they designed or decided where to put them and when to put them in a bubble. And we do that based on the threats and vulnerabilities that our border is seeing, the threats and vulnerabilities on the south side, the flow of traffic, and we have a lot of reasons why we do what we do.
And Jennifer, let me touch base a little bit on a policy standpoint. I mean, I think that the charts and the map, in some ways, sort of speaks for itself. I mean, you look at the traffic that comes through the Tucson sector, and you look at the checkpoints that exist up along the U.S.-Mexico border, the 32 checkpoints that exist, and our numbers are atrocious. I mean, there's been a green light to go through southern Arizona for many, many years. There was a strategic buildup in California and Texas with this idea that if we could funnel people to the most inhospitable part of the desert, people wouldn't try, because people would likely lose their lives and the risk would be too high. But because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and because people are desperate, people will risk their lives and try to come into the United States. The majority we know are coming in probably economic reasons, but there is a very large and increasing number that's coming through. These are bad folks. These are folks with drugs. These are folks that are criminals. These are folks that want to do us harm. And so because this area was ignored for so long, we're really playing catch up. And, you know, again, the map and the numbers do speak for themselves. And this report is just another tool that we have to understand the effectiveness. But because we haven't had permanent checkpoints in the Tucson sector, it's very difficult to compare essentially nothing to something that has been long established in other communities for many years. So thank you. I'd like to have Kendall Croson come up, please.
Kendall Croson with the Tucson Audubon Society. Your comprehensive report really resulted from a lot of research with people who have concerns and a lot of data generated by people. Tucson Audubon speaks for wildlife, and we have serious environmental concerns about the KT 41 checkpoint location. And we have addressed those concerns to the Border Patrol and have not heard anything back really about the status of environmental investigations that I believe are being carried out by the Army Corps of Engineers. And so I would like to ask the Border Patrol and the GAO representatives the status of that background environmental work and whether any of that has been presented to the GAO for analysis. Our concerns particularly address the fragmentation of the rural landscape in northern Santa Cruz County, and particularly the fact that really credible studies have shown that the area between Amado and the Tubac Golf Resort is a crucial wildlife crossing from the highlands to the east, the highlands to the west, and back and forth, and that the genetic health of populations of wildlife in those highland areas, the small populations, would be seriously threatened in the long run if movement between highland areas is cut off by fragmented habitat and development through that region. Immediately north of the proposed checkpoint location is a wash, the Chivas Wash, that goes under the highway through some culverts, which has specifically been identified as a key wildlife crossing. So we're very concerned about the 24/7 level of light and activity in an important wildlife area. We have a 300-acre conservation easement where we're conserving and restoring habitat there as well. On the local level and then on the regional level, the effect of the Border Patrol checkpoint would have on wildlife migration. Just in June, I believe it was, a black bear was tracked along the Santa Cruz River within a mile or so of this proposed checkpoint location. And those, that kind of wildlife needs open rural land to remain available in this part of the county. So what is the status of addressing those kinds of concerns from the Border Patrol, and has any of that been communicated to the GAO, and have they looked at those issues?
Well, as far as the environmental study, as far as the environmental study itself, so that's been put on hold while we go through this process. Once it is completed, it will be made available like any other government study is. But as far as our footprint, if you will, the footprint that we have, the impact on an area, one of the things we have seen up and down the border in the last couple decades is when we go into an area, yes, we do have a footprint. However, it quickly mitigates the illegal traffic that's in there. And in several areas up and down the border, I know the least tern, the snowy plover, the snow-orange chub, and some of these other species have been removed from the endangered species list, and they're still protected because of we were able to move illegal traffic and activity out of the border area. So our footprint going in, it does exist, but we mitigate it and we continue to see wildlife, the wall types, come back to being healthier, the species being stronger. So I anticipate the same would happen.